Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
During over 2 decades of working in the senior care industry, Kelli Bradley learned more than she ever would have thought possible, met amazing people, and genuinely felt she was able to make a difference for families going through the same horrible events she did with her parents. But she always felt there was a disconnect between senior care professionals and families. In the hospital, you're handed a pamphlet, you're informed about the endless amounts of information online, but you're still left with so many questions on what to do with your family's situation specifically. Kelli founded thedevotedDaughter.com to be that missing bridge. She's here to guide children of elderly parents and bring them comfort in knowing they are not alone. Her mission is to take away the stress of caregiving so that her clients can spend more time as their parents' loving child and not as a caregiver. Welcome, Kelli Bradley. Kelli, thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome. Happy to be here.
All right. And we talked about it beforehand, and I really like the business and the story behind it. So I want to jump into that and talk about that with all of our listeners. So just start off, tell us about the devotedDaughter.com and how you're helping your clients.
Sure. So the Devoted Daughter is a resource for families. And I found that one of the biggest mistakes that people make is they wait too long to get help, and they don't know how to get help. So I'm sure we're going to get into a little bit of the backstory later, but this platform was really designed to serve those folks who are in the middle of a caregiving scenario, or they're thinking about it and they don't know where to go, because there is so much information out there right now. It's almost overwhelming, and it kind of does you a disservice because you start going down that Google rabbit hole to try to find out, okay, well, my mom just got this diagnosis, or I think we need to get help. And then you find yourself almost as lost as you were when you started, before you started the search. And it's just that information overload and not knowing where to find a trusted resource who can connect all the dots for you.
Okay. So what type of, describe the outcome you're helping your clients achieve. So specifically, I know generally what you're doing, but share with our listeners like the specific outcome you're helping these people achieve.
Well, so as I said, I think that one of the big challenges for folks is they don't know what to do. And so by interacting with the Devoted Daughter and using the resources that we have available, whether that's an online course, whether that's individual one-on-one coaching, whatever that happens to look like for a particular family, it really helps them figure out how to build that family plan. What does this look like? What does this mean to my family? And they come to us with just confused and frustrated and unsure in terms of what the future looks like for their family. So by pulling all these pieces together for them, they walk away with their eyes are wide open. They have clear steps to take that they can do tomorrow or today. And best laid plans can change on a dime. So we're continually supporting them through the process. So we might think, okay, we've got a plan. Here we go. And then, something else happens. Another illness happens, or somebody can't drive, or, and there's so many different variables. And as much as our families are all alike, we all have those little nuances that make us just a tiny little bit different. So that's where I can help them pull all those pieces together and provide them that unique solution that they need for their family.
Okay. And what are some of the benefits and advantages to starting this process now versus waiting for it to actually be a problem? The benefits and advantages of actually beginning to prepare for aging parents?
Well, one of the things that happens is if you wait until you get that call in the middle of the night and somebody says, you know what, your dad had a heart attack, he's on his way to XYZ hospital. Do you know what medications he's taking? You're first of all, you're caught off guard. Second of all, you're stressed and anxious, and you don't know what his wishes are. You've got all these objectives that are coming at you that you never even thought about. So many families, it's just like, you know what, my parents are fine, and they're fine until they're not. they're fine until something happens. And when you find yourself in an emergency room in that urgent situation, and you're having a conversation with a physician and they're going over medications or they're talking about a diagnosis, and it's the first time you've heard it. I mean, just think about like if somebody's talking in Spanish
Mm-hmm.
and you're not familiar with the language, you kind of hear like bits and pieces where it's like, I think I know what that word means, but you don't really know what it means. And I think the same thing can happen in a medical situation. It's almost like you're hearing a foreign language because you've never heard this terminology before.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Some of it's also like getting plans in place of what your parents would want beforehand and discussing those options. Is that part of what your process is also?
Yeah, I mean, 40% of people say they don't plan on having the conversation with their parents. And the reason they cite for not doing that is because they're afraid that the door is going to get slammed in their face. Like, it's none of my business. I don't know what the reaction is going to be. I don't want to rock the boat. It's that kind of, it's really a fear.
Right.
And they don't want to damage the relationship. So we offer them ways to break the ice, to start having those conversations. How do you do that? What information is even important? I don't even know what questions to ask. And the last thing you want to do is go in there like a detective and, open the refrigerator and start saying, Mom, why are you throwing out the yogurt? It's expired. And just kind of start harassing them in a way. And then that's when people get their back against the wall. It's like, wow, I've been kind of running my own show for 65 years. And now all of a sudden you're Charles in charge.
Pretty good. Charles in charge. That's good. So you mentioned earlier that there's a lot of information out there. Specifically, what are some of the biggest myths out there when it comes to preparing to care for aging parents? Like things spread by the media or the medical industry or just the industry in general. What are some of the big myths out there that you see people come and talk to you with and you go, oh, wow, that's absolutely not true?
Well, first of all, it's family first, usually. I mean, if something does happen in the middle of the night, you're not calling a healthcare professional to help you. You're calling your brothers and sisters or your mom or whomever, right?
Right.
And so I think that one of the big myths that I've seen is that, somebody else can take care of it for you. You can just, mom and dad can just move and it'll be taken care of. You can hire somebody to come into your house and it'll be taken care of. You've got to participate in the process. And, if you think you can just hire it done, I mean, the financial component of it can be pretty significant. And it is an advantage if people have the funds to be able to hire someone. But I'm telling you, it doesn't work without family being involved or someone being an advocate. And same thing on, attending a medical appointment. Okay, well, you just need to go to these 3 doctors. Typically, when you go to a doctor's appointment, you get a lot of information. And if you don't have somebody else there to be your eyes and ears and to advocate for you, you don't get the best healthcare outcomes. So I think that I see one of the biggest myths being if you don't have a team, if you don't have a group who you can collaborate with or somebody who can be your advocate, you're not going to get the best outcome.
Okay. And speaking about the your aging parents, their kids, what are some of the fears that these adults have coming in about their parents and starting to actually care for them? And I think like it's beyond my ability to deal with this. What if I mess up and something worse happens? What are some of the common things people that come in, some fears they have when you start talking to them?
Well, I just think a lot of people are in avoidance mode. And they are, just like you said, like, I can't deal with this. I don't have the capacity right now. Like, I've got a full-time job. I've got my own kids. I've got my own stuff to do. And so they kind of just put it aside. Like I said earlier, your parents are fine until they're not. So it's like avoidance mode. But I also think there is that fear of, disrupting their life, or taking things away from them. At a certain point in people's lives, as they age, they start to experience loss. And whether that's, someone just retiring, you may not realize, but, maybe their whole social life was built around their work. And all of a sudden they've retired and that represents a loss to them. or maybe they're not driving anymore. And I think that when kids start to see their parents kind of peeling back a little bit, then and they start to step in, they're also afraid of the responsibility. Like, what am I signing up for? How many times do I need to go there this week? So it's like once you start to get, and you can become a caregiver so quickly without even realizing it. You start to just pick up groceries, and before you know it, every weekend is consumed with trying to figure out what your parents need.
Right. So, so a lot of times it's a slow, gradual process where they start jumping in, like I said, searching or helping them with groceries, and then they go to the house, put away, and they have to clean the house, and more stuff starts to build up. I can see that for sure. My parents are still together. My mom's doing good. My dad's definitely starting to age. So I'm starting to show some signs of age. It's not as sharp as it used to be. Can't carry stuff around. It's where I'm definitely going over there and helping more now. So I could definitely see that gradually increasing like that also.
It's a great opportunity for you when you are starting to help to do things together. Because I think that
that's good.
A lot of folks or a lot of kids don't do the together thing. And then that's when their parents start to feel like somebody's taking over for them. And then you get that resentment. But if you start to build that bond when someone can still communicate their wishes, and you can just say, hey, Dad, let's do it together. Like, he can't do it by himself, but at least if he can contribute in some way, he has his dignity, right?
Right. Well, that's a good gradual way to start doing that. And for both, for the parent to allow someone to start helping a little bit, and also for the child to be able to gradually get used to doing more and more instead of jumping right in and having their life completely disrupted. You get that special time with your parents and bonding, even if on their grandkids over to help a little bit and to slowly start building it up. That's good. Yeah. So can you share an example of how you've helped your clients overcome some of those obstacles before to succeed in preparing to care for their aging parents, like a case study or a story that you have?
Sure. So one of my clients, her name is Pat, and she was found on the floor of her home by the postman. And she was admitted to the hospital and then subsequently put in memory care. And she was very wealthy. I think she had 4 or 5 different homes, but none of them were managed. They were, she had been living with dementia for some time. She lost her husband a few years prior. And when I met her family at the home, she was a hoarder. And it was probably like 4,000 square foot house, but there was just piles of stuff everywhere, like everywhere. Food. It was horrible. Stock certificates that were worth hundreds of thousands of dollars just laying in piles around the house, cash, jewelry, all kinds of stuff. And I said to them, and she was a tube feeder, so there was some medical complexities also. So I just said to the family, the first thing we have to do is get our arms around all the valuables that are in here, gather everything together before she comes home, and but not disrupt the environment, because it's kind of like you just have to pick your poison.
Right.
And your first instinct is, oh my gosh, let's get all this crap cleaned up and muck out the house. But when you strip everything away from somebody so quickly, you're probably not going to get good cooperation. And she was already really fearful. So we got her home, and little by little, we just worked our way through the house, identified, and we did things like there were leaves in the tables. And so we would just, when she was napping, we'd take some things off, clean it off, and take a leaf out. There was stuff on the table. Like little by little, we were cleaning it all up. And, we got through it, and we were able to get her to a scenario where she had 24-hour care. She had caregivers coming in. It wasn't a financial issue for her. And she really found joy in her life again. And I think that's the place where I see such value. I walked in one day, and one of the caregivers, they had a record player playing. She had speakers throughout the house. And this little gal that was helping care for her, she was like 22, and Pat was 90, and they were dancing in the living room.
Oh,
And I
wow.
was like, wow, you know, just so much joy. And she was happy. I was like,
Yeah.
you can't beat that.
No, you can't. I love that. When you're talking about taking the leaves out of the table, it reminded me of, obviously that works really well at all ages. When I was a kid and I had my little security blanket, my mom, when she was started something to get rid of it, every time I take a nap would cut a couple inches off around it. So I got down to nothing. I was like, what is this thing? And I didn't want any more, but I never crushed it. I never fussed about it. I lost interest after a while. It slowly went away, like the cut on the table to slowly make the table smaller and get rid of all the stuff on it. So you obviously did. What's that? Go ahead.
It's nice when somebody else can help you think of solutions, because so many times families are so overwhelmed by what's going on that they can't even see it.
No, you're blinded by emotions and stress and everything else. Absolutely. So that's kind of what I want to talk about you next. You obviously did not go to college for this particular business. It's not like it was not a major you had in college. So what inspired you to start this business and this consulting that you're doing? It's very, very niche and specialized. So I assume you've got a good story in there.
Yeah. Well, my mom was diagnosed with diabetes at an early age, and I was in my 30s and working and traveling. And she just kept getting sicker and sicker. And then one thing would lead to another. It was like, first it was diabetes, and then it was neuropathy, and then it was kidney failure, and it was cancer. Then she lost her eyesight. So she was very medically complex, and something that most people aren't going to go through, I hope. But as a family, we just had to band together and try to figure out, how are we going to do this? And my younger brother's an orthopedic surgeon. He's 14 years younger than I am, but he went to medical school based on just, going through this with my mom. And my sister-in-law was a nurse. And then I just sort of fell into it because I'm the oldest, and it was like, we've got to figure this out. And there was never a great answer. But one day I was out with my mom. We were at chemo, and she had to use a walker because she was really weak. And I would just kind of give her a bear hug and pick her up and go, okay, Mom, here we go. We're out. Like, we can go now. And there was a man sitting next to us, and he said, wow, I wish I had somebody to do that for me. I was just like, oh my gosh, I'd been to so many doctor's appointments with her. And I thought, there are a lot of people who don't have kids who can just stop and do this for their parents. They have to be at work, or they've got other responsibilities.
Right.
And that led me to owning and operating an in-home care company.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought, this is something I can do. I'm doing it with my own family. I think I can serve others in this way. And I did that for about 11 years and served over 1,000 families during that time. So I've seen a lot in my own family and with others. But at the end of the day, I felt like, and I was operating a franchise, so I was limited in the people that I could serve. And I felt like that the message was, and the need was bigger than in-home care, that, it starts with that conversation. It starts with, identifying resources, and it goes all the way up to and including hospice care. So there's just a whole spectrum of care and resources that are needed along the way. And that's what kind of prompted me to form the Devoted Daughter and found that organization so that I could serve people across the board and in a bigger way.
Okay. Wow. I knew that'd be a good story. That's impressive. I saw my mom go through that with my grandmother. The same thing when she started getting a little older and having problems, and mom was one running around with her doing all that stuff. So I saw firsthand what that was like. So what's the most important question that like a person with aging parents should ask themselves as they consider to start preparing for? What's the one question you think that they should really ask themselves, or the most important for them to consider as they start this process?
I think when you first start the process, the biggest thing is to figure out what your parents want. What are their wishes? And whether those are realistic or not, everybody wants to be heard. Mm-hmm. And so unless you can hear them, you won't be able to support them financially, personally, professionally, or otherwise.
Okay. Okay, that's good. They're kind of keeping the communication open, find out what they want, and having them on board with it. I love that. That's seems to be a trend in what you've shared with us today is that communication back and forth and getting buy-in from everybody at both steps and keeping them both sides of this having complete buy-in and being the team and not having having the butting heads for sure.
And sometimes it's not you're not the person. Maybe
right.
Your sister has a better relationship with your mom and she can talk to her. You just kind of have to let that go. It's not a contest, right? It's we just want to help them and we want to help each other and remain a family through this process and not sabotage it.
Right. Okay. And what's something that an adult with aging parents, what should they look at when they're considering like a person like yourself to help them, like a consultant to help them out with this, or a in-home care type company? What are some things they should look at when evaluating consultants, other people to help them with this?
I think that the first thing is you want to make sure that the person has the background and the expertise. If you're hiring somebody to come into the home, that's kind of a different scenario. But I would say if you are doing that, each state has different rules and regulations. So you want to learn what's necessary in your state to operate an in-home care company. So for example, in some states, in-home care companies cannot help with medications. In other states, they can. And if they are helping with medications, that's something that you want to take pretty seriously and find out what the training is. Do they have an RN on staff? What kind of support or infrastructure do they have behind the scenes? I would also recommend that you find out, you need to make sure that the folks are licensed and bonded. So you want to make sure that they have that protection for you. And you also are going to want to check and meet with them personally. If somebody says, we'll just send someone over to your parents' house, that's just a major red flag. They should always meet with you personally, do an in-home assessment, because, it's not always right. I've met with families before and I could see that I didn't have the appropriate staffing to serve them. And I've said, you know what, I'm not ready for you yet. Or we just, we need to talk about this in 3 weeks, or I'll recommend another company. Just, you want somebody who's going to be totally open and honest with you. You also want to consider states that have regulations like tiered levels of licensure, because in some cases you'll hire a company that has a low level of licensure, and then your parent goes in the hospital, they're sicker, they need more help. And then you've got this great caregiver that your parents love, but you can't work with that company anymore because they don't have the appropriate license. So, make sure that the company you select can, go the distance with you.
Okay. That's great. There's a lot of good advice in there for sure. And if somebody has been listening to this now, they've gone through this and this is exactly the situation I see myself in. My parents are getting close to that age. I want to dig deeper into who Kelli Bradley is and find out more about the devotedDaughter.com. Come to your website. What should they do there? Are there other places they should go? Where should they find out more about you and your services?
So a majority of the information is on the site, thedevotedDaughter.com. We also have, we call it the Playbook for Aging Parents. So it's a digital course that people can kind of go and get their feet wet. And then the other thing that I'm offering right now is I put together a free Facebook group, and it's exclusive. It's called The Silver Lining. And it's exclusive in that I go live every Wednesday at 4:00 Pacific time. And I don't know anybody else that's doing this right now. So it's an opportunity for people to get their feet wet. And if they have a question, they can DM me, they can send me an email, whatever they're comfortable with. Mm-hmm. And I'll respond to them each week. So those are resources that are available. We've also got a blog there. So lots of great information.
Oh, that's great. Probably even if people are just jumping on and new to this, I'm sure they've had the same questions they've had, other people have had and sent you before, and they'll be able to find out answers to those and watch the videos. That's great. Yeah, those live videos are a great way to interact with people, even for the people that are a little more, passive or unsure, not want to jump right in and ask questions. They're probably going to have the exact same questions also. So that's a great way to get started.
They do. I mean, I'm telling you, in 11 years, it's just people would call month after month, week after week, day after day. And, they're new to this, right? This is new information to them. So they do ask the same questions. And
Absolutely.
that was one of the reasons that I thought I'm so passionate about this, the Devoted Daughter, is allowing people to get that information as, when they need it, so that they're not waiting and kind of trying to figure it out on their own, or they're not going to a doctor's appointment and someone says, "Oh, here, honey, here's a brochure and a pat on the back. Like, I'm sure this company can help you." It's like, what?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I can feel it. I have a son with special needs, and when he was born, we were almost like thrown to the wolves. Also, didn't know what to do, and we found found a community and found people to help. But there's nobody like you in that area, which would have been wonderful to have had. Somebody leading that at that point. So it's what you do. I can imagine that when I get to that point with my parents, having someone like you that is the expert and focuses on this one special thing, and is there just kind of giving the support and advice also, but just the knowing that other people have gone through that and that you're not alone is invaluable. And that would just mean so much, I'm sure, to so many people that are working with you. I'm sure that piece of it is a big piece also.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. Absolutely.
Okay. Well, is there anything else, Kelli, that you wanted to let people know about before we wrap this up?
Just come to thedevoteddaughter.com and check us out. I mean, I'm there to support you 100%, and let me know how I can help.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Kelli. And everybody, please visit thedevoteddaughter.com. She's got a lot of good resources there. And we will see you next time. Bye.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.